Maybe there. There you go.
Hi.
Hey, that's a great background.
Yeah, that's my studio.
Yeah. I figured. I'm not quite sure what it was that drew me in to want to record this interview with German painter Johanna Bath. Outside of her paintings, I actually can't say I knew a huge amount about her. Maybe that was the point, and this was a good opportunity to change that. Welcome back to Radio Juxtapoz, your relatively regular art podcast fix. My name is Doug Gillen, and coming up on today's episode, I'm in conversation with Johanna Bath from her studio over Zoom. Johanna first came onto my radar during her residency at the Fours Project in North London last year. The crops of her composition pushed in so tightly they filled every single pixel on the screen that I first viewed them on. Moments of intimacy captured on oils are then brushed away from the present in a haze. Once perfectly preserved, these scenes now distorted by the lens from which we view them. As we'll learn, Johanna's journey to becoming a full-time artist wasn't always obvious to her. Perhaps chance or fate playing a degree of influence in getting us to this point today. On Instagram, you'll find her under the handle Fraulein Bath. After a little digging, I learned that this is a playful nod to an outdated piece of German terminology that refers to an unmarried woman. By complete chance, we met for the first time on International Women's Day, and this seemed as good a place to any to kick things off from. If you do enjoy this episode, why not hit us up over on Instagram or subscribe wherever you happen to be listening in from today. Genuinely, we do really love hearing from you and finding out where you're listening in from. Let's get into it right here, right now, with Johanna Bath in conversation for Radio Juxtapoz. So where are you just now?
I'm in Hamm. It's 20 minutes from Dortmund in Germany. I'm excited. If it goes live at one point, it's my first podcast ever.
I mean, that's usually my first starting point for research and putting one of these together. I'm like, okay, cool. Have they done podcasts before, and what can I research from there? I didn't see too much. I don't know. There's another Johanna Bath that is an MIT professor.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you get that a lot.
Yeah.
You're like,
Could be worse.
yeah, exactly. Sex offender. It wasn't planned this way. Our meeting for the first time on International Women's Day. As an artist that is a woman, you work around, the concept of time and memory. And just to kind of kick things off, what does International Women's Day mean to you right now in this moment?
Oh, well, that's a heavy question to start with. I think on the one hand, it is a nice day, I suppose, to honor a woman. But on the other hand, I read something this morning saying that your society has a problem if you need a day to honor a woman to start with. When I think about my work, it's kind of very feminine, and I see myself almost like a very feminist artist. And when I started out, I never thought about being a female in the art world or a female painter even. But the older
You weren't originally aware of your gender. No, of course you were aware of your gender. Sorry, that sounds like a stupid thing to say. But you weren't aware of it in the capacity of the lexicon of female artists,
yeah,
maybe.
I would just introduce myself as a painter.
Mm-hmm.
I would never make a big deal of being a female painter. But I think that my work is very feminine and sensual, and even my path as a painter is comes from a very feminist point of view, I suppose.
This is interesting because these are both points I wanted to pick up on, because I had read in one of the articles that I'd read, the word feminine had been used to describe your work.
Yeah.
Just trying to actually pin that down. What does feminine artwork or a feminine touch in artwork or in relation to your artwork? What is that like if you were to unpack that?
I would say I see my work very like emotional pieces, and it's almost on the verge of being very, not kitsch, but very emotional, and it's about sensuality and touch and like memory in relation to romantic encounters. And sometimes, I mean, I don't want to separate like female against male artists, but sometimes I see work by artists and I can tell that it's a male artist because there's something, for instance, it's beautifully executed, but there's something missing for me. There's that, like, the emotional information is missing sometimes, or it's hidden. And it's hidden behind like very, yeah, beautiful painting, but it's not, I don't know, it's tricky.
That's what initially hit me, because I read it and it made sense to me. Like if someone says to me this is, it's kind of got a feminine air to it, or it feels like it's from the hand, you can automatically tell that it's from the hand of a female. But actually trying to figure out what it is in a really like practical sense, a tangible sense, like what is it then that we're trying to say that makes something feminine? And I wonder, as attitudes around stereotypes, gender norms, I wonder as they change, how that would then change what we describe as a feminine piece of artwork, how that might change in turn.
And it's difficult for me because to describe it and to get a hold of it, because I feel that my work has just recently become like emotional. Because I've been painting for 20 years plus, and just like I would say in the last 2 years, it became much more personal, because before that I was very hesitant to share my experience, because it's scary. It's very personal, and some stuff you don't want to share with an audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 2 years ago, there was a shift happening in my personal life, in my work as well.
Were they connected?
Yeah. So I was in a situationship with somebody, and it was very clear from the beginning that it was nothing more than a situationship. There was no future to it because of several reasons, like age gap and background and so many reasons. But there was so much chemistry there, and it was just like a beautiful couple of months. And I was very aware that this was like a temporary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very aware every time we met that, okay, I want to remember every single detail about this, because it's so beautiful, it's so fun, and I want to have this memory forever. And so I would go into the date or whatever. And then the next day I would wake up, and of course I could remember the evening, but I could never like remember the whole thing, whole experience. It was only like snippets and small, like my paintings, like cropped images of fingers, or something like a fold of a curtain, or anything really. And it would drive me mad that I could not. I have a bad memory anyways, but it was just so frustrating because I couldn't. It was always like on the edge where I could remember, but I couldn't get a sharp image. And the further I moved away from the evening, the memory faded, and it got just diluted. And it's such a strange thing with memory, because you go back and then you add something, and some things just get lost and then get triggered again if you smell something, or you see like a tree or a certain color, or and it was with this encounter romantically that I was really thinking about sharing my emotional thoughts. At first I was like, okay, no, as I've always done, like I paint, and then if somebody asks me, I just go, no, this has nothing to do with me. I don't know. It's based on imagery found from the internet, blah, blah, blah. This time I thought, okay, now I need, in order to make artwork that is authentic and very true and has a truth to it, I need to put this into the work. And then something very beautiful happened, and it just like was like the biggest, I don't know, confirmation that this was the right path. Because I shared it, and I started sharing on Instagram. I started sharing like quotes that would go with the artwork, also very emotional quotes. And there was so much positive feedback, and it was so beautiful because all of a sudden I felt like a connection between my work and the viewer.
2 years ago, do you think that kind of intimacy and those ideas of cropped moments, memory, do you think that then tied into what was collectively going on around COVID?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Just to kind of go in a little bit more on that, it's amazing how much that number seems to really come up, not necessarily as in like a really obvious way where COVID changed my practice, but in some way I hear this idea of like this change happening, 2-3 years ago, where something happened, and it's like, it feels like, I think one way or another, that period changed for so many people in different ways, either ways they create or connections with audience or what they found important to them. And I wonder if you found that in any way, was there an obvious connection there?
I think it definitely changed the like the lockdowns, and it didn't change my practice because I was like in my studio all of the time anyway. So
It's just Tuesday.
I mean, I had a good time. I was very fortunate at this horrible time for others, but I had a good time, and I was very fortunate because before COVID, I had a lot of work placed on online platforms, and those platforms got me through the lockdowns because I felt like everybody was sitting at home at some point, and they were staring at their walls, and they didn't spend money on like food, on going to restaurants or theaters or anything like that. And so they would like figure out, oh, how can we like make our home much nicer? Let's buy art. And then right after it, I had such a strong urge to show my work in physical places and in analog places because I felt so disconnected. Even though people were buying my work, I felt like so isolated and so disconnected. And so, yeah, so you could say that the pandemic had a huge impact on my work because of that experience. I started to post regularly on Instagram, and that's how it picked up.
This situationship, does that person know?
I mean, we are in contact. We are kind of friends now, and it's funny because I mean we started the conversation on like Women's Day and feminists, and it's so funny because for the first time I understood the whole concept of having a muse. And yeah,
Yes.
and I found it so funny to be a female artist having a male muse. And it was so everybody, I told the story, everybody was like, yeah, artists.
All the same, so you kind of get it now.
Yeah, I get it.
So what are you like in those moments then? Because I'm assuming you work from memory. This is an assumption that I would make.
Some pieces are based on photographs I took of the person or photographs I own, and some are based on just random imagery from Tumblr or internet.
Tumblr, I haven't heard Tumblr in a while.
And even like 10 years old pieces I collected in my boxes here, and I just go through them, and then there needs to be, you can tell, you go through the images, and then there's suddenly like this itch where you look at the image and it has nothing to do with you, but you feel like, oh, this is, I can envision it. I can see how this is going to be a good painting. And then by looking at it for so many hours and painting it, you transform the original image anyway. So you make it your own in some way. And because I reflect so much while I paint, it's almost like I switch off and I'm so deep in the process of painting. I feel there's so much emotion going into a random picture, and you can feel it. You can feel like the emotion and the thought process in the piece.
I know it's probably quite a hard thing to do, but to try and verbalize where that mental state is. I'm not a painter, right? And I always try to put myself in that place of like, you know, where are they when they're trying to create this? And for some people, it's purely just a kind of either a technical exercise or a second nature thing. And they're, you know, headphones on, listening to podcasts, listening to music, and they could be anywhere. And then for other people, it's like a piece of like therapeutic sort of like demon releasing. So if you look at these two sort of extreme ends of this spectrum, whereabouts are you in that, and kind of what is it that you're exercising during this process of creation?
I think it's catharsis, one for one, and then sometimes I'm so concentrated that like 4 hours pass and I don't even realize. Yeah, it's not even flow, but it's like this magical place where you get to the other side and you don't even know how you did the piece. It's a very blissful state. That's why I love doing the work I do. It's like a meditation. It's a quote by Philip Guston, who said that every painter knows that at some point, I might get the quote wrong here, but at some point, a third hand is doing the work. And I can relate to this.
I like that. I've never heard that before.
I'm dying to have this conversation, just to have like with a huge round of artists. And I'm curious to know if you can be an artist without being a spiritual person or religious person.
Okay.
Because at some point I feel like you are connected to a source that is out of this world. And it's spooky.
Okay, I like this. Let's stay in that. I'm invested now. I'm really in this. So let's unpack that one. Where my two lines of thought here are: one, which is picking up what you said, where it's a spiritual connection, where something else is guiding you, or the other one would be that it's actually your true self, and that this is the loss of your ego and everything like that. That's when your true sense comes out. Where do you think? Who do you think? Which force there do you think might be greater in that process for you?
It might be somewhere in the middle, but it's definitely coming from a subconscious place. And it's funny because I can tell I don't make good work if I'm not in this state of mind where I'm very like switched off my brain. Because sometimes I'm so focused on like the craft and getting something right, and I'm too neat and I get caught up in details, and you can see this in the painting, and it most of the time it's not a good painting because it doesn't have this like this looseness or this, I don't know if it's always like the ultimate goal for me to create something that has the ability to be more than just the paint on a surface.
The difference between something being AI or human.
Yeah. Or the difference between it's even the difference between being a painting or being art. And there's some shift happening. I cannot even describe how it happens, but there's a shift. Sometimes it's just one brush stroke that takes the painting from being, okay, this is a nice painting, looks good, but I don't get a connection here. And then I do something, I don't know what it is, and I do something, and it transforms into like this piece that like it has a life of its own, and it's like it's a living thing.
So do you think for other people they'd be able to see the difference in this, or is it something exclusively reserved for you?
No, I think other people get a sense of it. And I think that's exactly how you should, as a as a viewer or collector, approach art. It's this very initial first feeling, gut feeling that you go like, oh, I don't know what it is, but there's something about it that just draws me in.
How do you feel then when you look at your artwork? Can you let yourself go and detach from it and become an audience member, or someone in the gallery, or do you have to sit there and go pick up on these strokes individually and look at it from that, fuck, I should have done this, or this is what my problem is here?
I mean, I think at this point I'm very good at finding like an end and being like, okay, this is done. I put it aside. That's done. I never touch it again. And then with the pieces that are very close to my heart, it's if they're able to contain the excitement the next day. If I leave the studio and come in the next day and it's still like, yes, it's good painting, then it's going to be like this forever. But then there are other pieces that I set aside and I'm like, okay, I think this is finished. I'm not sure about this. It's hard to make a decision on this.
What is it then that you are particular, if you were to say something? I mean, for me, there's a couple of different things that you could pick up on, but what is it that really initially pulls you in for a subject matter? What is it that you would say you were initially drawn to for your paintings?
I would say it's always the emotion. If I get like from an image, if I get like this itch to paint it.
I understand maybe, as not an artist, I can see that maybe more through those sensual romantic moments, the touches, the kisses, things like that. How does that translate to then like things like still lifes, botanicals? How do you convey or feel that same sense of emotion through inanimate objects as opposed to moments of intimacy?
Yeah, I don't know if I wrote it myself or somebody wrote in an artist statement or something that I'm madly in love with life.
Do you believe that?
Yeah. And there's so many random things that I see every day and I go, this is beautiful. I really need to paint it. And this could be like anything. You can see it like in my images. It could be like a fig tree in my parents' garden, or just a random image where the shadow is just so beautiful, or some colors put next to each other. And
one of the things that I was trying to pick up on and where your work, particularly with the portraits, because those crops are so tight, you are intentionally removing so much context
yeah,
of style, time, place, period.
yeah,
All these things are then intentionally removed. And I'm wondering what it is that for you're looking to achieve in the removal of context.
yeah, because I feel like it's universal. Like the emotions and the people depicted, it's about an universal like exploration of being a human, I guess. And it was so interesting when I was in London in last month. I spent so much time in the museums. I was in awe, like to see paintings from the 17th century, 16th century, like even further. And they seemed so contemporary. And if you would just remove the clothes, the faces and the people depicted, they would look like they would. It was so easy like imagining those coming out of the painting at some point and just walking the streets. And yeah, that's why I never, or never say never. I try to remove like clothes and anything that can give information about like the time they're set in or circumstance, or I never really paint interiors as well.
There's also that removal of identity for the people. It's, you could have someone there. It could be, fucking Joan of Arc, or it could be, Christina Aguilera. And, and because it's so close, it's really quite hard to pick up on. So is that an obvious intentional thing for you to do, especially as a portrait painter with portraits? So much of the time, we're invited to consider who this person is or their story or things like that. And then with this tight crop, is it trying to strip things away rather than add things on, maybe?
Yeah. And it comes just as well from a place of just pure joy, because it's so much fun painting it. So I get so much like joy out of zooming something very closely, and then when you talk to somebody, well, you look them in the eyes. Yeah, your vision flickers, and then it goes from one point to another, and it goes on a journey. And I'm trying to like replicate this.
And I guess that's that kind of fuzziness that comes from your work, for lack of a more for lack of a better word. I don't know. I don't know what you call it, but that kind of that haze that exists through.
That's blurry. So when I started out, I would only paint with acrylics, and the faces and the people were much more specific. And so I studied illustration design, and so it was not so loose and very, I don't know, a little stiff. And then at some point, maybe 10 years ago, not long ago, 10 years ago, I got handed a box of oil paints by a fellow painter, and he said, "Here, you can have those. I don't know what to do with them." And so I had never, when studying, I'd never come across oil paints. So I just started playing around. And the first portrait I did with the oil paints, because it was so slippery and so different, didn't work. And so I scratched the paint from the surface, and what was left underneath was so interesting to me. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, this is great. And this is also adding something to the painting that is more than just craft and just executing something beautifully, because you cannot control it. And for me, it's a most like nerve-wracking, but also most rewarding part, because I paint the image quite properly.
Which is the first stage in this? Which comes first? You paint the image, or you layer the?
I paint the image.
Yeah.
No, I paint the image, and then I take brush. It depends how blurry I want it to be, like a stiff brush or a very soft brush, and I drag it through. Sometimes it goes wrong. Let's say I've painted on a piece for 8 hours, and I start dragging the brush through, and it just doesn't work. And then it's just the whole piece is screwed, because there's a difference between it looks, I don't know, sometimes it looks wrong and it's blurred in a totally wrong way. And it looks like I was hiding my non-existent skills with blurring something.
Yeah, yeah. So is it unpredictable then when you go to do this?
Yeah.
Is that because it's oil?
Yeah. Because it's like I don't use any like linseed oil or anything. I just use the oil paint straight from the tube.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's emollient, and it's like has a consistency like lotion, and it's not too slippery. And then I have like a time frame, let's say, of roughly 2 to 4 hours. So because once it gets dry,
It doesn't work.
doesn't work. So that's why I'm still stuck on pretty small formats. And I'm trying to figure out how to go bigger.
I was going to ask you about scale.
I mean, I thought about this because I get approached by like curators and galleries, and they were like, "Do you have anything that is bigger than like this very tiny, small things?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to work on this." And then I thought I tried for a couple of images, I tried to blow it up,
Mm-hmm.
but then it would lose the intimacy. And there was a point where I was like, am I just blowing this up to like make the curator or whatever comfortable because they want to show something large? It's not good for the art because there's something very, very intimate in the small scale. And I really like this. And it's so funny how the meaning changes because for instance, I have done some lip paintings, like very close-ups of lips. And when it's small, it's so like intimate. And I have done one which is quite large. And it's like it is intimidating. And it's not like delicate anymore. It's like a monster. It's like drawing you in, and it's completely changed its meaning.
Are you in the place then where you're happy just saying like, look, this is the scale that I enjoy working at and this is what works? Or are you currently thinking, okay, how do I change my compositions or change what it is that I'm painting to make scale work so that it doesn't feel, so that I don't lose the sensuality or the intimacy of that moment that's conveyed?
I mean, I'm always trying to do the next thing that scares me, and
What scares you at the moment?
the big things, the big canvases. Yeah, because I have to either work very quickly or figure out a way to use some like solvent in the paint.
So it's actually both a technical barrier as well as the kind of actually not being happy with the final result of having these, big giant lips or whatever it might be.
It needs to come from like I need to feel comfortable with it. It won't make sense if it's just, as I said, if it's just for like making other people like content, and there's no point in that. There's no beauty in that.
One of the other words that kind of kept coming up in the descriptions of your work was melancholy. What role does melancholy play for you and why is it so attractive?
So to start with, I'm a very happy person because sometimes I
That's
get
what I'm trying
like
to. That's what I'm trying to unpack here. I'm like,
no, because a
get
lot of
into it.
times I get like approached and like, oh, are you sad? Are you depressed? And I'm like, no, no, not at all. If you think about it, we almost talk like for an hour, and this hour is gone forever. It will never come back. And if you're sensitized to this, your life is like dripping and it's moving forward. And there's only in memory you can go back, but it's lost forever. And I think it's very, very sad. And it's on the other hand, it's of course it makes every like situation more precious. But at the same time, I find it quite because as I said, I'm quite happy and I'm very looking forward to the next beautiful memory I make. It's sad to, yeah, see all those beautiful days go by. And
How would you describe yourself then in those situations? I don't know, because I was looking at the intimacy of those moments and those snapshots, and I'm trying to picture from your artwork what you're like. Are you constantly analyzing little details of moments? Are you trying to preserve them, or are you actually quite relaxed and free in these spaces?
no, I'm quite relaxed, I would say. Because I think if you get so too caught up in the like melancholic state, you can drown very easily. And it's not my intention.
Do you think then that you're maybe such a happy person or comfortable person because you get to release this melancholy through your artwork and because that sense of you is fulfilled in a different place?
I think it's just painting is just a coping mechanism to get to get rid of the sometimes the heaviness that comes with it. And also to my friends make fun of me because I have a very bad memory. And so I feel like sometimes it's by taking something and making a painting out of it, it's like I spent like 6 and 8 hours to do the painting. And by this, I embed it into my brain even more. So the chances I remember whatever it is, are much higher.
Has memory always been a thing for you then? Because like because of the real strong presence of the notion of memory and time being a part of your work, is there a particular reason that you're drawn to this subject matter and almost the sense of having to battle to deal with not being able to preserve these moments? Has that always been a thing for you?
I approached painting and making paintings always from a place where I didn't think about what I was doing in the first place. So I just started painting because coming from again from illustration, it was very like you get something you need you get a task to do and you need to make a pretty picture that is relating to the information you get. I approach my paintings this way, just say, okay, I want to make a painting about this and that. It gets stiff and it gets not, I don't, it, yeah, it loses its like the magic. And so I do it the other way around. I just paint and then the painting is done and I'm like, ah, that's interesting. Why did I paint this?
That's a good way of doing it. I don't hear that too often. That's good.
So when I had my first quite larger show very locally here in my hometown where I grew up, I was with a partner. I was like in a situation where I felt very stuck and I wasn't happy in the relationship. And so I put up the pictures of the show and everybody was there, like his family and him, and we were still together at this point. And now looking back at the show, I was like, oh my God, did anybody see, like this was so spooky because in every piece there was like female figures and the male was blurred and removed, and it was female figures alone in painting, very fierce and looking straight into some kind of future. And it was so like it came obviously from a very subconscious place, and I didn't realize at the time. And so 1 year after the show, I separated from the guy, and we are on good terms now because we started as friends, and we are on good terms now. But it's funny that no one really, I mean, myself included, didn't see the connection between my own story and the paintings. I mean, I think there's no way I can escape what is in me, and there's always going to be a part of my story in the paintings. So why not just put it out there? Because it's very, very likely. I'm a human. If I share my emotions, it's very likely that somebody else feels the same and connects to this.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I guess maybe that would be the difference in approaching it from an illustrator background to approaching it through, if you would come in through, more of a traditional painterly approach rather than illustrative, if you would have been more aware of that.
I mean, I studied it but I never worked as an illustrator. And then on the other hand, I never thought I would become a painter as well.
How did has your work changed since those days of being an illustrator into now? Because we'd jump on your Instagram, look at your work and go, it's very painterly. It's very traditionally painterly.
So when I was at uni, I think I was there 5 years, 6 years, quite a long time. but I enjoyed it so much because this was with a diploma before bachelor and master degrees, anything. So it was very, at least in Germany, it was very free, and it was almost like a fine art studies, where you could pick your classes like painting and drawing and printmaking. And it was just then that I realized I enjoy painting so much. And I especially enjoy painting on larger scales because being an illustrator, you sit on a desk most of the time and you put the images on a normal size of paper. And I enjoy just the process of putting my own thoughts into like paintings. And I did this through the whole years of studies. And I started like selling some pieces along the line. And then I was finished with the studies. And then because never everybody is like teaching you how to paint, but nobody's telling you how to do business on or how to do your taxes or anything like that. So I don't know, in my mid-20s, and I was like, there's no way I can do like freelance illustrator work. How am I supposed to do this? I don't have clients. I don't know to get clients. I don't know how to do my taxes. I'm screwed. What am I going to do? Yeah, I was with a partner at the time, and so he said, okay, you should just, if you enjoy painting so much, why don't you just try being a painter? And that's what I did. I moved in with him, and because he was a teacher, or he is a teacher, I started teaching classes and painted on the side. And so yeah, I never worked as an illustrator. And I did to just get money somewhere. I did graphic design for friends and family or for schools and small illustrations, but never like on a like professional scale. It kind of evolved from there. And this was like the partner who said, just try it, you should be a painter, was the guy I separated then from. It was another shift from like being in this very safe space in a relationship where I didn't have to make a lot of money because he was like paying the rent and stuff. And I think I maneuvered myself into a situation where I wasn't living my full potential, and I wasn't really aware of it because everything was fine, everything was good, but I felt like I didn't have excitement about it all, and it felt like very like mediocre and yeah, not very exciting. And so, yeah, as I said earlier, I was kind of stuck. When I made the decision to separate, everything just fell into place. It was because I think there was so much pressure on me to make it at this point, because then I was on my own and I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to care for my own and how to make money. And what do you want to do? And I was like, this is 8 years ago. And I was like already mid 30s and 30s. And this is probably, as a woman, this is like the time frame where you have a family, you have kids, and all of a sudden everything was just like, okay, you go back to zero and you figure out, what do you want? What do you really want? And it was horrifying to me, to the like going to normal job, to take on a normal job was like, no, I'm not doing this.
I know what I'm not doing. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm not doing.
Yeah. And then even I did some art classes, and I really enjoyed art classes. And every once in a while I still do, like with elementary school, I do art classes. But this is so draining and it takes so much energy. And there was no way I could be like, okay, I'm an art teacher, and then in the afternoon I paint. This didn't happen. And so I was kind of forced to make this work in a very small time frame. And I think it worked.
Yeah. Seems to be.
Yeah, and I'm very happy. And I think it's just aligned with what was in me and what I was supposed to do to begin with, I think.
How do your surroundings then, and I know that we've talked about this in an emotional sense, and that you talk about your artwork coming through from how, you know, you're in a situation where you don't feel fulfilled and suddenly this lone figure comes out, and but how does then the physical spaces that you're in, how does that impact? Do you feel that impact your work? You know, I know that you did the residency here in London. I know that you did a residency in Venice. And I wonder if these being in these different spaces also has an impact, and if the sort of the pace of the city or the calm of the nature has woven itself in there.
So this is it's very different experiences with both the residencies. So first of all, Venice, both of these were great. Venice was beautiful, of course, but it was very different in a sense where it was, I was very inspired by like just the pure craftsmanship and the skill people have like building such a beautiful city and like making paintings for churches like 4 meter high, and this was very inspirational. But I feel like Venice is like a time machine going back. Yeah, it didn't feel like I was connected to the present. So it had, I'm sure it had a huge impact on my work as a inspiration to get better at what I do, in a sense, if that makes sense. But London was, I had the beautiful paintings in the museum, but as soon as I stepped out, it's very like present tense and even future. And it's more like, it was more, yeah, the experience was more like wholesome in a way. And because I was in touch with curators who would come by, and I was more, yeah, it was more social. It was more social than here because we are my studio, but my studio is also my apartment. Um, the London residency felt very cozy because it was the same setup there. It's a townhouse, and the studios is on the ground floor, and then the bedrooms are upper floors. So it's a very same kind of like work and living space together. And I think I really enjoy the convenience of that. And I mean, when I started out, I had a studio. I still have this studio, which is like 10 minutes ride away. And it's good for if I do want to make messy stuff and ceramics and school classes, and it's good for that. But I really enjoy the context of an apartment. And I really enjoy, yeah, sometimes I put like pieces I'm not sure about, I put them in my hallway just to check if they function without the studio setting.
I like that. I feel like I got a million and one different areas I would have liked to explore, but we can pick it up another time, I think. But we've been talking a lot about this idea of time and these moments. And I'm wondering if there's one moment in your life where something by seeming chance had completely changed the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, several moments.
If you
I
got,
can
we got to
pinpoint.
pick out one because we.
Okay, I can pinpoint them, exactly pinpoint them. Yeah, if I had to choose one, it's obviously the one where it was very evident that I'm going to separate from which was my husband at the time. I'm going to separate and I'm going to get divorced. And I remember very clearly, it's good that we are on good terms now, because if he listens to this, this is going to be
Will he listen to this?
okay. Yeah, no, maybe. But I remember, like, for other people, I called other people and I told them about the situations, blah, blah. And other people were like, oh, I feel so sorry. I'm so sorry for you. What happened? And I didn't feel like sorry for myself or sorry for the situation. I just felt like this is the moment. I'm going to be an artist and it's going to be good from here. And it was not because it was not like the relationship was so bad or anything, but it's just I got all of a sudden I had so much excitement for life again, because I felt so trapped before, and everything felt so like you're gonna have kids and you're gonna, this is your life. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, this is the chance. Now it's going to happen.
I
Yeah.
love that. I don't even need to ask any more on that. I think that felt good, because it was purely because that is a moment that could have been, the response or reaction. It could have been perceived in different ways, but the fact that it didn't have any of those negative connotations. If a marriage is ending, people go, "Oh God, this is," like you say, oh, "I'm sorry for you," but it's like, no. This is a freeing thing. This is like a really good thing that you now reclaim ownership.
I've never seen myself like as a victim. I married this guy because I wanted to marry him. And it was just every decision I made consciously. And then again, I can make decisions that just go into another direction anytime. And it also adds up to this excitement for life, because I can decide. I can decide tomorrow I don't want to be a painter anymore. I'm opening up a sausage shop. I don't know.
Sausage shop.
As somebody who's actively creating my life and who finds very much joy in that. Yeah. And to be fierce, and again, this on Women's Day.
Yeah, this is a good way to this. We've come full circle. This is perfect.
Yeah. And not to, I get scared a lot of times, but I do things anyways. Don't let the fear hold you back from anything. Yeah.
There you go. That was Johanna Bath for Radio Juxtapoz. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I didn't really realize it until I was actually editing this about how many of those talking points were actually areas that we haven't really previously covered on here. Things like starting an art career in your mid to late 30s, especially as a woman, and the challenges that presents, talking about scale in that particular way. Really, what made it for me was the candid nature with which Johanna was able to talk about these quite seriously pivotal moments in her personal life and how that shaped both her artwork and her art career. So I hope for everyone listening you were able to take something away from that. That's it from me just now. I'm going to be back with you guys real soon, as always. Till then, take care of yourselves and each other.